What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below. Thanks for being here, guys, to the best entertainment related show here on YouTube. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. We've been talking on the YouTube channel, guys, about Assassin's Creed and the newest addition to that franchise being Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And guys, I'm really excited about this game for a number of reasons. I'm a little bit skeptical about certain elements of it, but I want to talk about here in this first segment of the show about how Assassin's Creed Valhalla can set up Assassin's Creed 5. So let's talk about it. So guys, obviously, I've been very critical of Assassin's Creed up to this point, as far as from a, really more recently than not so much. I mean, the early additions to Assassin's Creed I absolutely loved, and I think all the way up to Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, they had a very, just a really great stretch. I mean, it was really special what they were able to build from Assassin's Creed 1 all the way to 4, and since then, there was kind of like this downhill trend, and we've talked about that, guys, and it really felt that when we got to Odyssey and Origins that we've kind of hit the dark ages of Assassin's Creed, just because it seems like they've kind of gone away from the formula of what made Assassin's Creed so great, that being like a stealth, RPG game turned into an action RPG game in the more recent editions of the series. So that being said, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, though, is kind of showing us a little bit of what they have done recently, and a couple of ideas or some similarities to things that they did way back in the early stages of the first Assassin's Creed games. And you can see that very much so at the very end of the, of course, the cinematic trailer that came out for Valhalla. We saw the hidden blade come out from the Viking that we're going to be playing as, or it seems like he's going to be the guy who we play as. And you see the hidden blade, and so that right there kind of shows you, okay, maybe they're going back to the roots of what made Assassin's Creed so great and kind of the traditions of Assassin's Creed. All you need now is a hood on the Viking, and there you go. We're right back into the Assassin's Creed world. It would feel like. It feels like Valhalla, even though the graphics, I've already said this on a number of occasions, are incredible. They look spectacular. We'll, of course, have to wait until the full game comes out. Other than that, though, it feels kind of more of the same as far as what they've been doing recently with Odyssey and Origins. Feels more like an action game or an action RPG versus that of a stealth. However, it seems like maybe Ubisoft understands what they kind of got wrong with those last couple editions of the game, and they're kind of trying to rewrite the ship in the right direction, that be, kind of moving in a direction back to the Assassins and what, the Creed itself. And so I think that might be the direction they're going in. And so what I'm going to get at here is, with the showing of the hidden blade and all of those things, guys, in that cinematic trailer, I think it kind of leads me to believe that even if this game primarily is an action RPG similar to Odyssey and Origins, they may be moving us in a direction that sets up Assassin's Creed 5. And Assassin's Creed 5, guys, I think would be, of course, in the main storyline of Assassin's Creed, and it kind of continues the legacy of it, but kind of picks up not necessarily where, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag left off, but it kind of bridges the gap here, so to speak. And so we get right back into being like an assassin, right? The hood and everything, jumping into hay bales and, using stealth to your advantage. And I think that was something that just felt like in Odyssey and Origins, and now potentially with Valhalla, they've kind of gotten away from. But Valhalla feels like there's a potential here to kind of, like I said, move this in the right direction, where it may be an action RPG overall, but could set something up, maybe near the end of the story, or even somewhere, kind of in between, like in the, midway point of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Nonetheless, I'm excited about Valhalla, guys, because, from a graphic standpoint, it looks incredible. It looks like something you got to play. And then on top of that, there's a mystery to it. There's some intrigue there to understand more of this story, but also how this ties into the overarching, franchise of Assassin's Creed. And so I think that's something that really keeps me, excited, looking forward to playing this, edition of Assassin's Creed. And I am holding on to hope here, guys, because I've said this on a number of occasions. Assassin's Creed, one of my favorite franchises of all time. But the problem with it, in the past couple editions of this franchise, it's kind of gone away from what I felt made the series so great. And so I think having a really great story mode that kind of starts to make sense of where the direction they're trying to go, and then even having mystery though in between there, I think is a good idea though as well. But then also having co-op modes and multiplayer modes, and kind of making this thing go full circle in a way in which it brings us back to the franchise. And I think Valhalla has an opportunity, a big opportunity, to go ahead and continue this legacy and kind of set up Assassin's Creed 5, which I think has been pretty highly anticipated up to this point. And so I think, guys, this feels like kind of like with Call of Duty, where Call of Duty kind of went astray with the franchise. They had this formula that worked out for so many years, and then they decided to start doing these, the jetpack era is what I called it, where people were jumping like 20 feet in the air with jetpacks, and it just didn't feel like Call of Duty. We got that for 3 years in a row, that being, for 3 different titles. And then they kind of rewrote the ship in the right direction and went back to like boots on the ground, that kind of feel, more grounded feel and gritty that we got accustomed to in Call of Duty. And so I think Assassin's Creed has kind of had an identity crisis recently with Odyssey and Origins kind of going away from, what made the series so great in the first place. And Valhalla might be that third, game that, they kind of try to bridge this between an action RPG and a stealth RPG, and try to kind of merge both those worlds together and bring us to Assassin's Creed 5, where things start feeling more like the older Assassin's Creed games. But guys, I could be wrong, and I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section below. What do you guys think about Assassin's Creed Valhalla up to this point, as to what you've seen so far? What are you hoping to see? Do you want them to continue the action RPG elements of it, or do you want them to go back to like that stealth RPG? Have maybe a little bit in between? How do you think Valhalla is going to fit with the overarching story of Assassin's Creed? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for more Assassin's Creed Valhalla content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. Prey has become one of those games that I really did enjoy, guys, when this game released back in 2017, and I've been hoping to see a continuation of this series, or this game, I should say, for quite some time, and ever since then, because I thought that it had some really, interesting concepts, and I think it's a shooter that definitely deserves to coexist with other shooters out there in the gaming landscape at this point. And so we've talked about on the YouTube channel about Prey 2 and the possibilities of it and what happened there, what happened to Prey as a whole. But in this segment of the show, I want to talk about Prey 2 and why it is a game that should exist in the gaming landscape. So let's talk about it. So like I said, guys, the first Prey, came out May 5th, 2017. Prey 2 was greenlit after this game came out, and they got pretty far into development of Prey 2, and then of course it, got canceled along the way for, probably a number of different reasons. I think there was probably a number of reasons why it got canceled. Number one would probably be simply because, there's a real possibility, guys, that Arcane Studios decided that, there might have been some creative differences, or there was a possibility that they didn't like the vision or where Prey 2 was going at that particular moment in time. And so there's been a lot of talk that there would be a continuation of the Prey series, because the first Prey was it was a pretty interesting and exciting, game to say the least. And I think that there really was something here. It had a lot of, gave a lot of different vibes, guys, to different, other games out there in the gaming landscape. But what I'll say is this: I think Bethesda would do very well to go ahead and have Prey come out. So Bethesda is the publisher, of course, guys. Arcane Studios is the developer. And so Bethesda, you look at other games that they've, had, come out, or sequels to other games that have come out. Let's look at Rage, for example. We've talked about Rage on the YouTube channel quite a bit, and Rage has had a sequel to, to the first one. And this is a series that reminds me a lot of Prey. Not that they're like, they're obviously different stories and things of that nature, but they're very similar in, kind of the size of the fan bases and, it just kind of feels like, why wouldn't they continue Prey as well if they're going to continue Rage? Because I think that there's a decent sized fan base after the first Prey came out. And people have been clamoring for another Prey game for quite some time, even though it might be a niche, group of a community. I still think that this would be a series that could sell well. And obviously they were considering it, and there was probably just some creative differences, and the vision wasn't really there for the second Prey game. That doesn't mean, guys, that this is a series that is completely dead. It doesn't mean that they're never going to come out with a sequel. It just means that right now it's on an indefinite hiatus. And so why should it exist? Well, guys, you could ask the same question for a number of these franchises. Since we brought up Rage, why, should Rage 2 exist? Why should any other game out there, why should there be continuations? Well, number one, guys, I mean, it really comes down to the community, right? The community that's being built around a specific game. I think most developers out there aren't thinking to themselves, well, if we, make this game and it becomes, absolute success, I'm sure that they're thinking to themselves that they would like to, make continuations, or at least make a lot of expansions for that particular game, whatever the case might be. But at the end of the day, the publishers are thinking, well, we want there to be multiple games, because if there's multiple games, that means that there's something there. There's a fan base there that's going to keep on playing those games as they go along. So, for one, Rage is a franchise that has had a sequel. There's even been talks of a third game coming out. Prey reminds me a lot of Rage, like I said, and I think that Prey deserves to have a sequel, because, sure, it might be, not, like the biggest franchise on earth, but this is a franchise, guys, that I think they have something special going, and I think that they can elaborate on that, not only with the next gen of consoles, with the from a graphics standpoint, but even from a story perspective. Who knows where they could go with this story? They're using the Cry engine, which is the engine that they used to make the first Prey game. So if they did that again, I mean, they could really come up with some pretty, from a graphics standpoint, it would look really good. If you had some co-op modes, you have some multiplayer modes. This is a franchise that really, I think, could continue to grow. I think that it's definitely one that has a lot of possibility. I mean, we look at Rage 2, just a single player experience, didn't even have a multiplayer experience or co-op experiences, and we saw that really hurt the game in a major way, as well as bugs and, obviously not a lot of things to see and do when you're traveling around the world, but that's neither here nor there. The main thing here is with Prey, having a Prey 2, they could really elaborate on this world. They could, continue. They could have some, more co-op modes, multiplayer modes, and really bring that fan base, to come back, to keep coming back to Prey 2. So I don't think, guys, at the end of the day, that this is a franchise that is by any stretch of the imagination dead. I think what it comes down to is the fan base has to be the ones that are voicing their opinion to Arcane Studios, voicing their opinions to Bethesda, that they want to see a continuation, that we want to see a continuation of Prey. Because this is a franchise, guys, that does deserve to coexist with other shooters out there. But at the end of the day, guys, I think it really comes down to preferences, and it comes down to us as a community stating that we want something made. And if enough people are saying, and asking for something, a lot of times these developers will see that, and then they will greenlight these projects or bring them back from the dead. But with that being said, everyone, I want to hear from all of you guys. Would you guys want to see a Prey 2 at some point or another in the future? And what is it that you guys would like to see in a sequel to the 2017 Prey? Let me know what you guys think. And for more Prey 2 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. Another film title that may suffer from the pandemic going on in our world is The Kingsmen, guys. This is a film that I am incredibly excited about. I know a lot of people are really excited about The Kingsmen as well. And this is a movie that is planned on releasing in September of this year. And here's the thing, is that this is a movie that it could very well be a blockbuster movie. I mean, this is starting to become a staple, guys, in the film world and just in the movie world. People are starting to absolutely love this franchise, similar to that of maybe James Bond, and this could become the next James Bond or the next Jason Bourne type of movie series. And so, where is The Kingsmen at this point? Because right now, guys, we don't really know if there's going to be significant delays that continue moving forward for a lot of these movies. Obviously, we know that there's a lot of movies that are getting pushed back to later on in the year, and some are being pushed to 2021 and maybe even beyond that. So right now, it seems like the Kingsmen is at this very moment going to be safe where it is in September. But at the same time, we were talking about this with No Time to Die. There's a lot of movies that are going to be coming out later on in the year. And so what I'm getting at here is that there's going to be a lot of competition. And then on top of that, there may be the theater chains are going to have to comply, of course, with only filling up half of those auditoriums, which means that, basically the ticket prices are probably going to get inflated because not everyone's going to be able to sit next to one another, at least for the time being. And so what I'm getting at is that a lot of the filmmakers as well as the film studios are probably looking at this thinking to themselves, well, should we just wait until there's more of a normalcy at the movie going experience or being able to have large crowds at a movie theater? Because we all know that The Kingsman is going to most likely be one of those films that sells a lot of tickets. It's going to get a lot of attention there, similar to some of these other big blockbuster movies. And so here's the thing. I feel that I would love to see The Kingsman stick with that, September date. But at the same point, at the same time, I feel like there's a real opportunity or a real chance that they're going to push this thing back even into 2021. And I would really hate for that to happen. But I also think there's a possibility that this is a film that could go straight to streaming services. And we've already said this about other films that, they may think to themselves, look, we're going to have to, we're going to take a big hit putting this in theaters where you have to split, revenues with the third party, that being the movie theaters. And then on top of that, you're going to have to inflate the ticket prices. And then on top of all of that, we can't even fill up the entire theaters. And, so even making their money back from making the movie in the first place, it might be a stretch by putting them in theaters, and they may have an easier time putting in streaming services. And that streaming service, it really is hard to say if they're going to be able to make that money back. I don't know if we're there yet, guys, as far as with streaming services, that being like Netflix and, I know Peacock's coming out, as well as, Quibi and a number of other streaming services, Apple TV, Disney Plus. But I don't know if we're there yet where a movie can go to a streaming service and it can be justified spending, $100 million, $200 million to make that movie, and it goes to a streaming service where there's a certain amount of people, of course, that are subscribers. Now, maybe for Netflix, it maybe would make more sense, but it's very hard to say, guys. So, look, the movie landscape as well as the gaming landscape, those are things that are changing on a consistent basis. And so I think that with the pandemic going on, don't hold your breath with that September date sticking for The Kingsman. I think that this is a movie that could get pushed back into 2021 potentially, or if it gets pushed back too far, it may very well just go straight to streaming services. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen because we love the movie theater experience. It's a great experience. We don't want to see it go away. But this whole, pandemic going on is basically forcing people inside, forcing people to actually watch, stuff on like streaming services. And so I'm wondering what the studios are thinking as far as that goes. But right now, where is this movie? This movie is slated for September, guys. That's when it's supposed to come out here in 2020. But I think that there might be a possibility that it's going to get pushed even further into 2021. But let me know what you guys think about The Kingsman. Are you guys excited about it? What do you guys want to see out of this movie? And at the end of the day, do you think that this is going to be a movie that's going to actually get pushed back even further, like into 2021, or do you think it'll stick with that September date? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for more The Kingsman content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. We've talked on the YouTube channel about Just Cause. This is a franchise, guys, that I really enjoy. It's very obviously one of those franchises that is, unrealistic in a number of ways, but that's the beauty of video games. There's just a lot of, excitement and such around, the different things that you can do, and the imagination runs wild when it comes to these video games and this franchise in particular, that being Just Cause. And so what I want to talk about, guys, is Just Cause 5. This is a game that we've talked about here on the YouTube channel. You guys can check out, those videos here, but Just Cause 5, I want to talk about everything that we want. And when I say we want, I'm mainly talking about myself, and I know some of you share the same thoughts as myself and same opinions. But if you don't share some of the same opinions, let me know what you guys want to see in Just Cause 5 in the comment section down below. So guys, let's talk about the release timeline here really quick so we can give some context. So you got from 2006 was our very first Just Cause game that came out. Then you had about 4 years later, you had Just Cause 2 come out. And then 5 years after that, Just Cause 3. And then 3 years after that, you had Just Cause 4. And so it seems like, they space out these games. And so what I would say is now being in 2020, we're probably a year or so away from hearing word of a Just Cause 5. And depending on when they want to make another one, it really, comes down to just kind of preference and such. And I think that Just Cause 5 is definitely something that people in the Just Cause, community definitely want to see. Now, one thing that all these games have in common, and the one thing, or I should say, there's a couple of things, but the main thing here that I see that's in common with all these is that there's one mode with all of them, and that is a single player experience. And I'm not going to say, guys, that it's a terrible thing, but I've said this ad nauseum at this point on the YouTube channel, that when you limit a game to one game mode or to, only a limited amounts of different ways that you can connect with that game or franchise in this, instance, there is a lot of, there's a kind of it kind of stunts the growth of what the potential could be for a series like Just Cause. So to give you an example, each of these games are a single-player experience. I'm not saying that the single-player experience isn't good, because it's very exciting, it's invigorating, it's a very fun experience depending on which one you're talking about. But not having co-op experiences and not having multiplayer experiences is something that's going to hold back a franchise like this, in my personal opinion. Now, you could say, well, it's obviously not holding it back because they've made 4 games up to this point, and we're talking about a 5th one. But I think what could really progress the franchise forward in a major way, I'm not just talking about from, moving the story in the right direction. I'm talking about moving the franchise in the right direction, moving it to a point where there's lots of people streaming it on Twitch. There's a huge community of people talking about it on a daily basis. And because when it comes down to it, guys, we know the facts is that multiplayer games are typically the biggest games in the world at this point. Single-player experiences are certainly something, that are special and something that should not ever go away. But I think what needs to happen strategically by the developers and publishers is taking franchises and saying, basically, okay, look, this has been the formula. We've been making a single-player experience, but now we need to expand it in order to grow this fan base. Because if you have 4 games, like in the case of Just Cause, you obviously have something there, but it may have its growth stunted because you only are doing single-player experiences. If you have multiplayer and co-op modes, it brings you back to the game, brings you back to the franchise on a consistent basis, especially if those game modes, that being multiplayer and co-op, are really good. And so single player can be great, guys, and I've compared this to I'll compare this to like God of War, which obviously came out, and that was a very, incredible experience. People loved the single player experience for God of War. People are excited for the continuation, but see, there's only so much you can do with a single player experience, like a single player story. You play it a couple of times, and then you usually move on to another game. Like, you may play the campaign a couple of times through. What I will do is I'll play the campaign one time through, see what the story's like, and then I'll go back through on my second time around, and I will look for collectibles and things of that nature, kind of try beating the game in a different way and playing it on a harder difficulty. But after that, if there's no other ways in which you can connect with the franchise, I'll move on to another game. And usually I'm looking for games that are full package deals. I'm going to spend $60, and in that $60, you're not only getting a single player experience, but you're also getting multiplayer and you're getting some co-op modes. So what I'm getting at here, guys, is the things that I want in a Just Cause 5 is going to be a full package, and that being a single-player experience that continues progressing the story forward, but also having multiplayer experiences that I can connect with, on a regular basis, and then on top of that, co-op experiences that I can play with my friends. And so when you have, those are the main things. Obviously, the story and such, guys, you play this game, and it's like a blockbuster game. It's like one of those games that you start, playing, And it's just a lot of fun. And, you play it through, and then when it's done, and you kind of move on typically. Now, I know there's a lot of people who love this franchise. Wouldn't you want to have more ways in which you can connect with this franchise? That being like co-op or multiplayer, even if they just added a few things. I mean, I'll give you an example of a franchise that I feel had tons of potential, but because it was behind the curve on some of these things, it, ended up kind of fizzling out, was Dead Space. It was a very niche game in the standpoint of a horror action game, or more so just a horror game in general. And they were behind with adding co-op. They were behind with adding, multiplayer modes and such. And so when Dead Space 3 came out, they tried to change the formula to an action horror game instead of just a, pure horror game. And it didn't really settle well with people. And then on top of that, they added co-op, but it was almost a little bit too little too late. What I'm getting at here is that Just Cause can kind of learn from mistakes like that of some of the other games out there in the gaming landscape. You would hate to see Just Cause end up just ending one day because it's just not bringing enough copies. Like a single player experience, it's not doing enough. Whereas if they add multiplayer and co-op, it's going to really build that franchise in a different way. And I think it's important to have a full package deal. And so that being said, guys, that's my main thing personally, from a perspective of someone who is a lover of video games and absolutely would really likes the Just Cause franchise. I think this is a great franchise overall, guys. And look, when we go to Just Cause 4, and based on Wikipedia, you look at the review scores. I mean, the reviews are above average. I mean, I would say, guys, they're mixed or average reviews. And the PlayStation 4 version of Just Cause sold 16,100 copies within its first week on sale in Japan, which placed it at number 7 on the all-format video game sales charts. So that's another thing, is like, I don't know what that compares to some of the other games, but what I'm saying is that the sales may not be doing as well. Like, they're slowly decreasing in this franchise. And I'm not saying it's because of just a single player experience, but the more ways you can connect with the franchise, the better, in my personal opinion. But I'd love to hear your opinion in the comment section below, guys. So at the end of the day, Just Cause 5, the main things that I want, and I think that I kind of speak for some of you out there, that we want other ways to connect with the franchise. We also want to continue what has made Just Cause great up to this point, that being, a great single player experience, kind of continuously updating the, whether we're talking from the graphic standpoints, which will be obvious that, updating those graphics on the next gen consoles, which I think would do really well for Just Cause 5. And then on top of that, just continuing the legacy and the story, and even adding new mechanics, slightly, keep it like Just Cause, but adding a few new mechanics is always something that's really great as well. New environments that you're traveling around, that's also really cool. But all in all, the main point here is a full package, guys, is better than just having a part of a package, right? So I think that's really important to understand, guys, and that's what my thinking is. I'd love to hear yours in the comment section below. And let me know what you guys think about Just Cause 5 and what are you hoping to see in the future with this franchise. Let me know, guys. And for more Just Cause 5 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.